The starport was a sprawling hub of activity, with beings from all corners of the galaxy moving in a fluid dance of efficiency. Among them, Nathan Hale stood out like a sore thumb. His well-worn jacket and rugged boots were in stark contrast to the sleek, polished attire of the alien species surrounding him. His disheveled brown hair and casual demeanor didn't help either. Nathan adjusted the straps on his bag, feeling the curious gazes of a few tall, slender aliens with iridescent skin that shimmered in the low light. He could feel their judgment and amusement. As he made his way through the crowds, Nathan approached the small kiosk, its display flickering to life with a menu of various local services. He punched in his destination, Docking Bay 14. The kiosk beeped in acknowledgement, and a small holographic map appeared before him, outlining his route. Human. A voice interrupted his focus. Nathan turned to see an alien standing nearby, towering over him by a good 2 feet. Its skin was a pale lavender, eyes glowing with a soft luminescence. First time off-world. Nathan flashed a small grin, wiping the sweat from his brow. That obvious. The alien chuckled, a strange sound that seemed both amused and condescending. We don't see many of your kind around here. What brings you so far from your little blue planet? Work, Nathan replied with a shrug, not feeling the need to explain himself any further. He'd been hired to fix an engine problem on one of the starport's most advanced freighters, a job he was more than capable of handling, despite the skepticism he'd sensed since arriving. Before the conversation could continue, a loud alarm blared through the station, echoing off the metal walls. The alien smile disappeared, replaced by a look of concern. Around them, the other patrons of the starport began murmuring, their movements becoming tense. Nathan turned toward the nearest exit, his instincts kicking in. He had seen his fair share of scrapes in space, and he knew when something was about to go sideways. Suddenly, all exits in the terminal slammed shut with a resounding clang. Nathan raced to one of the doors, pounding against it in frustration. What the hell is going on? He muttered under his breath. The station's lights dimmed, and a disembodied voice filled the air. Please remain calm. This is a standard security lockdown. All travelers must comply with security protocols. The situation will be resolved shortly. Nathan's gut told him something was off. This didn't feel like a routine check. The crowd was growing restless, and it wouldn't be long before things spiraled out of control. His hand instinctively reached for his side, but of course, he had been forced to leave his blaster behind when he arrived. Not that it would have helped much against the advanced security systems in place. Just then, from the corner of his eye, Nathan saw movement in the shadows, a lone figure sitting quietly in an alcove, watching the chaos unfold. His curiosity piqued. He slowly made his way toward the figure, keeping his head low. The closer he got, the more he realized the figure wasn't just any traveler. It was an alien woman, her skin a deep blue with a shimmer that seemed to pulse faintly with each breath. She was relaxed, almost too calm for the situation around them, and her eyes glinted with something that made Nathan's instincts flare in warning. Care to explain what's happening? He asked cautiously, keeping a few paces between them. He wasn't sure if she was part of the problem or knew something he didn't. She tilted her head, studying him for a long moment before speaking. You humans are always so quick to panic. This is just a routine test. You'll be free soon enough. Her voice was smooth, but there was an edge to it that Nathan didn't trust. Doesn't feel routine, he muttered, his eyes scanning the room. The other patrons were growing more frantic by the second. The alien woman smiled, a slow, deliberate curl of her lips. Maybe not, but it's nothing you can control. Just enjoy the ride. Nathan narrowed his eyes, but before he could reply, the station lights flickered again, and the voice returned. All unauthorized personnel, prepare for inspection. He felt a chill run down his spine. Something was very wrong, and he had a feeling this inspection wasn't going to end well for him. The voice echoed again, cold and mechanical, filling the vast expanse of the starport. Nathan's heart pounded as he scanned the room for a way out. The exits remained sealed, leaving no easy escape. All around him, the various alien species were growing more anxious. Some muttered in their native tongues, while others huddled together, casting wary glances toward the ceiling, where the security cameras followed their every movement. Nathan's gaze flicked back to the blue-skinned alien woman. She still sat calmly, her posture unchanged, as though the growing panic around them was beneath her concern. He frowned, feeling more unsettled by her composure than by the alarm blaring through the station. "Are you just going to sit there?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Or do you actually know something that can help?" The woman's luminous eyes shifted to him, and for a moment, Nathan felt as if she could see straight through him. She rose gracefully, her long robes flowing around her like liquid, and walked toward him, her movements smooth and predatory. "You humans," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "are always so quick to assume danger where none exists." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "None exists? Really? Because it sure looks like we're trapped here with no idea why." Her lips curved into a small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Your kind has always been ruled by fear. It clouds your judgment." "Yeah. Well, fear tends to happen when you're locked in a room without warning," Nathan shot back, crossing his arms. He wasn't about to let this mysterious alien intimidate him. The woman let out a soft, almost mocking laugh. "I admire your confidence, human. But confidence alone won't save you." Before Nathan could respond, the floor beneath them rumbled, a low vibration that spread through the metal beneath his boots. The other patrons fell silent, their eyes wide with confusion and mounting terror. A few of the taller aliens began to shout in their language, their voices rising in unison as they pointed toward the far side of the room. Nathan followed their gaze. A large section of the wall was beginning to shift, sliding apart with a deep groan of grinding metal. From the shadows beyond the opening emerged a group of heavily armed figures, their armor sleek and menacing, their helmets obscuring their faces. They moved in formation, weapons raised and ready. "Security," the woman whispered, her tone dark. "But not the kind you're used to." Nathan's gut twisted. These weren't station guards. They were something else, something far more dangerous. His mind raced as he considered his options. He had no weapon, no exit, and no idea what these soldiers wanted. The soldiers spread out, their rifles trained on the crowd. One of them, a tall figure with red markings on his armor, stepped forward, speaking in a language Nathan didn't understand. His translator hummed in his ear, struggling to keep up with the rapid speech. "All non-citizens will be processed for contraband and unauthorized technology," the voice translated. "Failure to comply will result in immediate detainment." Nathan's heart sank. Processed. That didn't sound like the kind of thing you walked away from easily. He glanced around, searching for any signs of resistance, but the crowd was frozen in fear. Even the alien species, many of whom were far more advanced than humanity, seemed unwilling to challenge the heavily armed soldiers. He turned back to the woman, who remained unnervingly calm. "Any bright ideas?" he asked, his voice low. He didn't expect her to help, but he was running out of options. Her gaze flicked to the soldiers, then back to Nathan. "You should stay still," she advised. "Comply, and you might survive." "Might?" Nathan's frustration flared. "You don't seem too concerned about what's happening here." She tilted her head slightly, considering him. "Because I know more than you do, human, and I know that resistance will get you killed." Nathan clenched his fists. He hated feeling powerless, but she wasn't wrong. These soldiers were dangerous, and without a weapon, charging them would be suicide. But he also wasn't one to just sit quietly and hope for the best. One of the soldiers raised a scanning device, the beam sweeping over the crowd. As it passed over Nathan, it paused, emitting a loud beep. The soldier turned toward him, pointing his weapon in Nathan's direction. The rest of the squad moved in, their rifles aimed squarely at him. "Step forward, human," the soldier's voice growled through his translator. Remove your outer garments." Nathan's eyes widened in confusion. "What?" "Do it," the soldier demanded, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. The blue-skinned woman watched intently, her expression unreadable. Nathan hesitated, his mind racing. Why were they asking him to strip? What were they looking for? When he didn't move fast enough, the soldier stepped closer, his weapon humming with power. "Now." Reluctantly, Nathan began to unbutton his jacket, his movements slow and deliberate. He was acutely aware of the stares from the other patrons, their eyes filled with fear and curiosity. As he pulled off his jacket and dropped it to the floor, the soldier's scanner beeped again, louder this time. Nathan's pulse quickened. Whatever they were looking for, they were getting closer to finding it. The soldier gestured toward Nathan's shirt, his weapon still trained on him. "Keep going." Nathan's hands paused at the hem of his shirt, a sense of dread creeping over him. He had no idea what was hidden beneath his clothes, but something told him that revealing it wasn't going to end well. As he stood there, shirt half lifted, the blue-skinned woman stepped forward, her voice low and urgent. "Don't." Nathan froze, meeting her gaze. For the first time, there was a flicker of real concern in her eyes. "What are you hiding, human?" she whispered. Nathan's heart raced as the blue-skinned woman's warning echoed in his mind. His fingers hovered near the hem of his shirt, unsure of what to do next. The soldiers grew impatient, their rifles buzzing with lethal energy. "I said, keep going," the soldier barked, stepping forward menacingly. Nathan's mind whirled, trying to make sense of the situation. What could they possibly think he was hiding under his clothes? He was just a mechanic, not some kind of dangerous criminal. He glanced back at the woman, her intense gaze unwavering. "Listen to me," she said quietly but firmly. "If you reveal what's beneath, you won't make it out of here alive." Her words sent a chill down Nathan's spine. He didn't understand why, but the weight in her voice carried a warning he couldn't ignore. His mind raced for a solution, but time was running out. The soldiers wouldn't wait much longer. "Why should I trust you?" he muttered, his voice low enough to keep the soldiers from hearing. The woman stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "Because I know what they're looking for, and I know you don't want them to find it." Nathan clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to tear off his shirt and be done with it. Whatever was going on, it was bigger than him. He could feel it in the tense air, in the way the soldiers moved, and in the woman's urgency. Something was hidden in plain sight, something the soldiers were hunting, and somehow it involved him. Before he could make a decision, the soldier leading the squad stepped even closer, his weapon inches from Nathan's chest. The barrel hummed with energy, a reminder that compliance wasn't a request, it was a demand. "Last warning, human," the soldier growled. "Strip, or we'll do it for you." Nathan swallowed hard, his fingers gripping the fabric of his shirt. Every instinct told him that this was the point of no return. He glanced at the blue-skinned woman one last time, and in that brief moment, he made his choice. In a flash of movement, Nathan let go of his shirt and turned, diving toward the nearest cover, a metal crate stacked nearby. The soldiers reacted instantly, shouting commands in their language as they opened fire. Bolts of energy whizzed past him, striking the ground where he had just been standing. "Nathan, no," the woman shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. But Nathan wasn't listening. He wasn't thinking. He was running on pure instinct. He slid behind the crate, his back pressed against the cold metal as energy bolts slammed into the ground around him. His pulse pounded in his ears, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He had no weapon, no real plan, and no backup. But he couldn't just stand there and let them take him. From his hiding spot, Nathan peeked out just in time to see the blue-skinned woman raise her hand, a soft glow emanating from her palm. Before the soldiers could react, she unleashed a wave of energy that rippled through the air, knocking several of them off their feet. The sudden display of power stunned the room into silence. Nathan's eyes widened. He had no idea what kind of technology or ability the woman possessed, but it was clear she was far more dangerous than she appeared. The remaining soldiers quickly regrouped, raising their rifles toward her. "Stay down," she shouted at Nathan, her voice filled with authority. Nathan didn't need to be told twice. He ducked lower behind the crate, his mind racing. The woman was holding her own, but she was outnumbered, and the soldiers were regrouping fast. He couldn't just sit there and watch. He had to do something. As he scanned the room, his eyes fell on a maintenance hatch just a few feet away. It was a long shot, but if he could get inside, maybe he could find a way to disable the security systems or access the station's controls. Anything was better than waiting to be caught. Summoning every ounce of courage, Nathan took a deep breath and sprinted for the hatch. More energy bolts sizzled past him, but he didn't stop. His body moved on pure adrenaline as he reached the hatch, wrenching it open with trembling hands. He scrambled inside, pulling the door shut behind him. The narrow passageway was dimly lit, the hum of machinery filling the air. Nathan's hands were shaking, his mind still reeling from the chaos he had just escaped. He took a moment to catch his breath, pressing his back against the cold metal wall. But he couldn't rest for long. He needed a plan. The soldiers weren't going to stop hunting him, and now the woman had shown her hand. Whatever game was being played, he was now a part of it, whether he liked it or not. He crawled deeper into the maintenance shaft, moving as quickly and quietly as he could. His mind raced with possibilities. If he could find the main control hub, maybe he could shut down the lockdown sequence or create a diversion. He wasn't a hacker, but he knew his way around basic tech systems. As he moved further into the station's underbelly, he couldn't shake the nagging thought that the woman had saved his life for a reason. She knew something important about him, or about what was happening. He needed answers. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Nathan reached a small control room. It was empty, dimly lit by a series of flickering monitors. He rushed to the main console, his fingers flying across the controls. The interface was unfamiliar, but it didn't take long for him to find what he was looking for, a schematic of the station's security systems. Just as he began to tap into the system, a soft voice echoed from behind him. "You can't run forever, human." Nathan froze, his blood turning to ice. Slowly, he turned around to see the blue-skinned woman standing in the doorway of the control room, her expression unreadable. "How did you?" he stammered, but she cut him off with a wave of her hand. "I told you not to reveal yourself," she said softly, stepping closer. "But now, you've made things worse." Nathan's mind raced. "What do you want from me? What's going on here?" The woman sighed, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of regret and determination. "There are forces at play far beyond what you can imagine, human. Forces that have been waiting for someone like you." Nathan's pulse quickened as the woman's cryptic words hung in the air. She stood before him, calm and composed, as though the chaos outside was of no consequence. Her eyes bore into him, seeing far more than he was comfortable with. "Someone like me?" Nathan scoffed, trying to mask his fear with defiance. "I'm just a mechanic. You've got the wrong guy." The woman smiled faintly, a gesture that carried no warmth. If only that were true. Nathan's mind raced. He had spent his whole life flying under the radar, just an ordinary man in an extraordinary galaxy. He didn't have special abilities or hidden powers. Whatever the woman believed he was, she was wrong. "I don't understand what you think I am," Nathan said, his voice tinged with frustration. "But I'm not the person you're looking for." The woman's expression softened slightly, as though she pitied him. "Nathan, you're more than what you appear to be. That's why the Rethark soldiers are after you. And that's why you need to be careful." Nathan took a step back, his mind spinning. The Rethark soldiers, the lockdown, her cryptic warnings. It was all too much. Careful of what? I don't even know what's going on. The woman stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The Rethark aren't just hunting for weapons or contraband. They're searching for humans with a unique genetic anomaly. And you, Nathan, possess that anomaly. Nathan blinked, stunned. Genetic anomaly. You've got to be kidding me. But the woman wasn't joking. Her gaze remained steady, unwavering. I've seen it before. It's rare, but it exists. The Rethark believe that humans like you pose a threat to their control over this sector. They fear you, Nathan. He wanted to laugh, to tell her how absurd it all sounded, but deep down, something clicked. Ever since the soldiers had singled him out, he'd known something was off. They weren't treating him like a simple smuggler or criminal. They were acting like he was dangerous, like he was more than what he appeared to be. Let's say I believe you, Nathan said slowly. What does this anomaly even mean? The woman hesitated for a moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. The anomaly enhances certain human traits: strength, speed, resilience. It makes you more in ways the Rethark can't fully understand. But to them, it represents a potential threat, something they can't control. Nathan's stomach twisted. He wasn't some kind of superhuman. He was just a guy who could fix ships and get by in life. But if what she said was true, then his entire reality was being turned upside down. And it made sense why the soldiers had been so adamant about him stripping. If they saw the physical markers of the anomaly, he'd be as good as dead. That's why you stopped me, Nathan said, piecing it together. You knew what they were looking for. The woman nodded. If they confirmed what you are, they wouldn't let you live. The Rethark don't take chances with people like you. Nathan exhaled slowly, his mind reeling. So what now? Am I just supposed to keep running? The woman's expression grew more serious. For now, yes. But there's more at stake here than just your life. Nathan, the Rethark are tightening their grip on this sector, and they won't stop until they've eliminated every last threat to their dominance. You're part of something bigger than yourself. Nathan wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or terrified. He wasn't a hero, and he certainly wasn't looking to get involved in some intergalactic conflict. But if what she was saying was true, he didn't have much of a choice. He had become a target, whether he liked it or not. I still don't understand what you want from me, Nathan said cautiously. Why are you helping me? The woman's eyes flickered with something like regret. Because I've seen what happens when the Rethark succeed. I've seen what they do to people like you. And I can't stand by and let them wipe out another world. She glanced at the control panel Nathan had been working on, her expression thoughtful. We need to disable the lockdown and get you off this station. If we stay here much longer, they'll find us. Nathan nodded, grateful for the clarity of purpose. He turned back to the console and resumed working, his fingers moving swiftly over the unfamiliar controls. The system was complex, but with his technical skills and the woman's guidance, they began making progress. As he worked, he couldn't help but glance over at her. There was something about her that intrigued him, a depth to her that went beyond the surface. She had risked her life to help him, and yet she still held an air of mystery. Who was she, really? And why did she care so much about his fate? Finally, after several tense minutes, the screen flashed with a confirmation. Lockdown override initiated. Nathan felt a surge of relief. They had a way out. I've disabled the lockdown, Nathan said, turning to the woman. But the station's still crawling with soldiers. We're not out of the woods yet. The woman smiled, her confidence returning. We'll manage. Stick close to me, and I'll make sure we get out of here. Nathan grabbed a small toolkit from the control room, feeling more prepared now that he had some semblance of control over the situation. They moved quickly and quietly, navigating through the station's winding corridors and avoiding any patrols. But as they approached the docking bay, a loud alarm echoed through the station. The Rethark had discovered the breach. We've been compromised, the woman said, her voice tense. We need to move fast. Nathan's heart pounded as they sprinted toward the docking bay. The sounds of soldiers closing in echoed behind them, growing louder with every passing second. Just as they reached the airlock, A squad of Rethark soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons trained on Nathan and the woman. "Get down," the woman shouted, pushing Nathan behind cover as she raised her hand. Another surge of energy erupted from her palm, knocking the soldiers back. But more were coming. "We can't fight them all," Nathan said, his voice panicked. "We need to get out of here." The woman nodded, her expression grim. "I'll hold them off. You get to the ship and go." "What?" "No," Nathan protested. "I'm not leaving you behind." The woman's eyes softened. "You have to, Nathan. You're the one they're after. If you stay, neither of us will make it." Nathan's mind raced, torn between survival and loyalty. But deep down, he knew she was right. If he stayed, he'd only slow her down. "Go," she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. With one last look at the woman, Nathan made his choice. He turned and ran toward the ship, his heart heavy with guilt. As the airlock doors hissed shut behind him, he heard the sounds of battle growing fainter. But he couldn't look back. He had to survive, for whatever came next. Nathan stumbled into the ship's cockpit, his chest heaving with every breath. The stark silence of the empty vessel contrasted sharply with the chaos he had just fled. He punched the controls to begin the launch sequence, his fingers trembling as he brought the systems online. The lights flickered on, and the hum of the ship's engines filled the cabin. He felt a knot tightening in his stomach. He was safe for now, but the woman who had saved him, who had risked everything, was still out there, fighting alone. Nathan glanced through the viewport, the station's cold, metallic interior visible beyond the hangar bay. It would only be a matter of time before the Rethark soldiers broke through and came after him. But still, the thought of leaving her behind gnawed at him. His hands hovered over the controls, hesitating. Could he really abandon her? Could he fly away and leave her to face the Rethark alone? He had no idea who she really was, but she had saved his life, more than once. As the engines powered up, a warning flashed on the console. Rethark patrol ships were closing in. Nathan swore under his breath. If he didn't take off now, they'd trap him here. With a frustrated growl, he slammed his hand against the console and initiated the launch sequence. The ship shuddered as it rose off the ground, its thrusters firing up. The hangar doors opened, and Nathan guided the ship toward the blackness of space. But the moment he breached the atmosphere, his ship's sensors lit up like a Christmas tree. Rethark interceptors were already in pursuit. They weren't going to let him go easily. Nathan's hands flew across the controls, activating the ship's defenses and plotting a course to evade the incoming ships. The interceptors closed in fast, their weapons locking onto his vessel. "Damn it," Nathan muttered. "This isn't going to be easy." He veered the ship to the side, narrowly dodging a barrage of laser fire. The Rethark ships were faster and more heavily armed, but Nathan had something they didn't: desperation. His mind raced as he scanned the tactical readouts. The ship had basic shields and some outdated weaponry, but nothing that could hold off a full squad of interceptors. His only chance was to outrun them. With the interceptors closing in, Nathan pushed the engines to their limit, the ship's thrusters screaming as they propelled him forward. He dodged and weaved through space debris, using every ounce of his piloting skills to stay one step ahead of his pursuers. But no matter how fast he went, the Rethark ships kept gaining ground. The ship shuddered as laser fire grazed the shields, draining their power. Warning lights flashed across the console, but Nathan gritted his teeth and pushed forward. He couldn't let them catch him. "Come on," he muttered, his knuckles white, as he gripped the controls. The Rethark were relentless, closing the distance with every passing second. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest as he pulled off another evasive maneuver, barely dodging their direct hit. Suddenly, an idea sparked in his mind. He checked the ship's systems. There was one trick left up his sleeve. The ship had an emergency hyperdrive jump system, but it wasn't designed for combat situations. It was risky, and there was a high chance of miscalculating the jump. But at this point, it was either that or face certain capture. Nathan tapped the hyperdrive controls, setting a random destination as far from the Rethark patrols as possible. The coordinates weren't ideal, but they'd have to do. He took a deep breath and initiated the jump sequence. The ship lurched violently as the hyperdrive engaged, space bending around him as the stars stretched into streaks of light. For a moment, Nathan thought the ship might tear itself apart, but then the sensation passed, and the ship rocketed into hyperspace. Silence fell over the cockpit, broken only by the steady hum of the ship's systems. Nathan let out a shaky breath, his entire body sagging with exhaustion. He had escaped for now. But the woman's words echoed in his mind. He wasn't just running from the Rethark. He was running from something deeper, something tied to the genetic anomaly she had mentioned. Nathan slumped back in the pilot's seat, staring at the stars through the viewport. He had no idea where he was going, no idea what was waiting for him at the end of this jump. But one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Several hours later, the ship emerged from hyperspace into the quiet emptiness of a distant star system. The coordinates had brought Nathan far away from Rethark-controlled space, but he still couldn't shake the feeling that he was being hunted. He leaned back in his seat, his mind still racing from the intensity of the escape. Questions swirled in his head, but no answers came. The woman who had saved him, the genetic anomaly, none of it made sense. And now he was out here, alone, with no idea where to go next. A soft beeping sound broke through his thoughts. Nathan glanced down at the console. A message was coming through, on a secure channel. He hesitated for a moment, then accepted the transmission. A familiar face appeared on the screen. It was the woman from the station. She looked tired, but alive. Relief flooded through Nathan at the sight of her. "You made it," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "So did you," Nathan replied, his tone lighter now that he knew she was safe. "I managed to escape the station," the woman said. "But the Rethark won't stop. They'll keep coming after you, Nathan. They know what you are." Nathan frowned. "I still don't understand. What am I supposed to do?" "Keep running." The woman shook her head. "No, you need to learn how to harness your abilities, how to fight back. There's a place, a safe haven where people like you can train, where you can learn what you're truly capable of. I can take you there." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And then what? I just become some kind of soldier in a war I didn't ask for." The woman's gaze softened. "No one's asking you to fight, Nathan, but you deserve to know the truth about who you are. You deserve the chance to make your own choices." Nathan sat in silence for a moment, weighing his options. The Rethark weren't going to stop, and neither were the questions haunting him. Maybe this safe haven was the answer. Maybe it was the only way to find out what was really going on. "All right," Nathan said, his voice firm. "Let's go." The woman smiled, a hint of relief in her expression. "I'll send you the coordinates. We'll meet there." The transmission ended, and Nathan's ship adjusted course automatically as the new coordinates loaded into the nav system. He stared out at the stars, a strange mix of fear and anticipation building in his chest. Whatever lay ahead, Nathan knew there was no turning back. Nathan's ship glided through the cold expanse of space, following the coordinates the woman had sent him. It wasn't long before the distant shape of a planet appeared on his sensors. His fingers tightened around the controls as the ship approached the planet's atmosphere. The planet, from the distance, appeared serene, a blue-green world surrounded by swirling clouds. But Nathan knew better than to trust appearances. Everything in his life had shifted in ways he still didn't understand, and this planet was just another step toward uncovering a truth that had been hidden from him his entire life. As the ship descended, he spotted a small settlement tucked away in a lush valley, far from any major cities or spaceports. This had to be the safe haven the woman had spoken of. Nathan's ship touched down gently on a clearing, its landing gear sinking slightly into the soft earth. The air outside was clean, and a sense of peace seemed to hang over the valley. But there was an undercurrent of something more, a quiet tension, as if this place had seen its share of battles. He stepped out of the ship, scanning the surroundings. The settlement was quiet, but he could sense movement. People watching from the shadows, assessing him. He wasn't sure if he should be relieved or wary. A figure emerged from one of the larger structures, and Nathan's heart skipped a beat when he recognized her. The woman who had saved him on the station walked toward him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and purpose. "Nathan," she greeted, her voice calm. "I'm glad you came." He nodded, his expression tense. "I'm here. Now tell me what's really going on. Why did the Rethark come after me? What is this anomaly you mentioned?" The woman paused, then gestured for him to follow her. They walked toward the main building, a simple but sturdy structure that looked far older than it appeared. As they entered, Nathan saw several other people inside, each wearing a look of quiet determination. Some glanced at him with curiosity, while others seemed to know exactly who he was. "You're not the only one, Nathan," the woman said, leading him to a room at the back of the building. Inside, a holo display projected images of various beings, humans, aliens, all different species, but with one thing in common. They had been marked as anomalies by the Rethark. "Throughout the galaxy there are people like you," she continued. "Individuals who, for reasons we're still discovering, possess abilities the Rethark fear. They've been tracking these anomalies for years, capturing or killing anyone they find." Nathan frowned. "Abilities? What kind of abilities?" The woman turned to him, her eyes steady. "The kind that can change the course of the galaxy." She raised her hand, and for a moment, Nathan saw the faint shimmer of energy surrounding her fingers. It was subtle, but unmistakable, a power that wasn't natural. "You see," she said softly, "the Rethark fear what they don't understand. They fear us, and they fear what we might become if we learn to control this power." Nathan's mind raced. Could he really possess such power? He had always been an ordinary human, an engineer, not someone with hidden abilities. But then again, nothing about his life had been ordinary since that encounter with the Rethark. "I don't feel any different," Nathan muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That's because you haven't awakened your abilities yet," the woman explained. "But you will. And when you do, the Rethark will come for you, just like they've come for the rest of us." Nathan leaned against the wall, the weight of her words sinking in. He had been running from something his whole life, something he didn't even know existed. And now that he was here, he realized there was no going back. "So, what now?" he asked, his voice low. "Do I just wait for this power to show up, or is there something I'm supposed to do?" The woman smiled faintly. "There's training. We can help you learn to control it, to channel it. But the most important thing is understanding that this power is a part of you. It's been with you all along. You just didn't know it." Nathan looked down at his hands, feeling a strange new awareness settling over him. It was terrifying, but at the same time, it was liberating. He wasn't just some mechanic anymore, stumbling through life. He was something more, something the Rethark feared. And that meant he had a choice. "I'll do it," he said, lifting his head. "I'll train. I'll learn how to fight back." The woman nodded, her eyes shining with approval. "Good. You'll need every bit of strength you can muster. Because the war is coming, Nathan. And this time, humanity won't be standing on the sidelines." The days that followed were unlike anything Nathan had ever experienced. His training was intense, pushing him to his physical and mental limits. The settlement's inhabitants, humans and aliens alike, had all faced the same awakening, and they guided him through the process of unlocking his own abilities. At first, it was frustrating. Nathan felt like he was grasping at something just out of reach. But slowly, with each day, he began to sense it, the raw energy within him, waiting to be harnessed. It wasn't just a physical strength. It was something deeper, tied to his very essence. Under the woman's guidance, he learned to control the energy, to direct it with purpose. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when he thought he might fail. But each time he pushed through, driven by the memory of the Rethark, by the knowledge that they were still out there, hunting him. And then, one day, it happened. Nathan stood in the training grounds, focusing on a target in the distance. His heart pounded in his chest, and his muscles ached from hours of practice. But this time, something was different. He could feel the energy coursing through him, powerful and undeniable. With a deep breath, Nathan raised his hand. The energy surged, crackling around him like electricity. He focused it on the target, his mind clear and sharp. And then, in an instant, the target exploded, disintegrating into dust. Nathan stared at the empty space where the target had been, his heart racing. He had done it. He had awakened his power. The woman approached, a smile on her face. "Well done, Nathan." He turned to her, a mixture of awe and determination in his eyes. "So this is what the Rethark fear?" She nodded. "Yes, and now that you've awakened, they'll come for you. But this time, you'll be ready." Nathan's jaw tightened. He knew what was coming. The Rethark wouldn't stop until they had destroyed every last anomaly, every last human who posed a threat to their control. But now, Nathan wasn't just running. He was ready to fight. The woman placed a hand on his shoulder. "The war is coming, Nathan. And when it does, you'll be at the forefront." Nathan looked out at the horizon, the weight of his newfound power settling on his shoulders. He had spent his whole life hiding from his true self, from the truth about who he was. But now he wasn't afraid. "I'm ready," Nathan said, his voice firm. The woman smiled. "Then let's show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of." As the sun set over the valley, Nathan knew that this was only the beginning. The war was coming, and humanity was about to take its place in the stars, not as victims, but as warriors. And the Rethark would soon learn that there was no power in the universe more dangerous than a human determined to fight for their freedom.